Last time on The Savior's Champion, Layla spoke with her sisters, and she wasn't excited about the tournament. Then Layla spoke with her servants, and she wasn't excited about the tournament. Then Layla got a new personal guard, and she wasn't excited about the tournament.
Stop looking at me like that. Here we are. I've been doing everything in my power today to avoid this book. The time has come, because I want to stop cleaning. If you hear noises in the background, I've got a crackling fire going in my fireplace, and also the dog is about and eating her dinner and whatnot. So Nigel is here. You can't see him though. So chapter 3 is called The Pool. I noticed that Jenna is sticking with her gimmick of the noun chapter titles. I'm here for a good chapter gimmick. I like a good gimmick. But once you're on book 2 and the books are this big, I would be like, okay, gimmick over in book 2. Layla's mirror mothers are feeling very judgy of her for being a murderer very much. Because as you recall, in the last chapter, she killed someone. Again. Who cleaned it up? I don't know. Presumably one of her sisters. I'm still curious if her dad knows that she's just murdering all these people and he just doesn't care, or whether she's really that good at covering up all of her murders. Once again, she goes to Delphi's room and Delphi is having sex. Everybody just be having sex up in this palace. This palace must be so boring. The only thing to do here is have sex. I did want to mention a little bit that Delphi could be leaning on a not great trope that is that queer people are promiscuous, but I don't know that she necessarily is, because it seems like everybody in this palace except our hero is promiscuous, so I'm not sure that we're leaning on that queer people are promiscuous damaging trope, or whether everybody just having sex with everybody up in here.
Man, everybody got AIDS and shit.
This is not true. They're talking about the pool where the men are out getting judged for their worthiness and dick size. And Layla says, all this fuss so 17 men can be slaughtered for no good reason. We read the first book, and lots of men got away without being slaughtered, and it was kind of a disappointment. I really did expect more death. Layla and Delphi are coming up with the plan we remember from the first book.
So, tell me, cousin, I hear you have a cunning plan.
Where Layla pretends that she's not the savior so she can go in and check out what's happening with the tournament. And this is something I was legitimately curious about. Not so much that I needed a whole book, but I was curious whether she was doing it with or without her dad's, permission. But she mentions that her dad has kept her locked up, and that's an advantage, so no one knows what she looks like. But I thought that she was the one who chose to keep herself locked up because her dad was going to kill her once she got out in public. Then she just never went out. I thought that was her choice. Maybe I just don't remember correctly because it was a while since I read those chapters. So the public has not seen her at all, not even a picture of her. That's pretty intense. If I was the people of the realm, I would be high-key suspicious that something was going on. I mean, obviously the realm is still in good shape, which means your savior must be here, laying in the dirt with her tits out, blessing the land. But I would be like, where is she? Why isn't she coming out to meet us?
Like the last book, this book has its own set of horrifying implications, one of which being that, to keep servants from telling people what Layla looks like, basically, it must be that once you go in to work in this palace, you never come out. You die there. No wonder everybody's just having sex all the time. There's literally nothing to do because, once you go to work in the palace, you must be kept there for the rest of your life, lest you tell anybody what the savior looks like.
Layla is obsessed with Cosima's eyes. I hope that pays off later for some reason because, again, she's like, Cosima should be the one posing as the savior. Her eyes are the most beautiful thing. Delphi is like, well, what about the family resemblance? You kind of look like your dad. And Layla's like, men are stupid and Cosima is hot. It won't be a problem. It looks like they are going to try to keep it from her dad as well, which definitely makes Brontes look like even less of a threat. And I don't know why he's a problem, because she's killing his people left and right, presumably without him knowing. And now she's like, I am going to pretend that my sister is the savior and he's not even going to notice that. So it just doesn't make him into a very scary bad guy. So Layla's plan is that she will stop herself being assassinated by going into the labyrinth. I mean, we know she does, but in the first book, I always thought that was more because she was curious. But in this it tells us that no, she thinks the best way to avoid being killed by these people is to put herself as close to them as possible. Yes, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Seems risky, but again, we know that the assassins are actually the worst assassins in the world, so I'm not worried. I can't shake how much it feels like reading a fan fiction of the previous book. It doesn't feel so far like, oh my gosh, this book was so necessary, this was the obvious next step in the series. This feels like, hey, you loved the first one, now there's even more details, like a fill-in fanfic. I'm here for fanfic, but leave it in the realm of fanfic. We don't need another book this big. But to be fair, all the big names are doing it. We've got the 50 Shades of Grey thing, we got the author of Twilight who can't seem to help herself rewriting the book. Maybe I'm the dumb one, and this is the way to go. All of this feels very contrived, just to have made the first book work. This is the horniest palace ever, though, because Delphi's like, don't forget, while you're trying to prevent your own murder, you need to find a man. Wow, Layla's daddy is dumb. If we're meant to believe that he's falling for this, maybe he isn't. Maybe he's onto her. But they have a meeting, and she goes, and she's all like, what could have happened to Simon? Oh, why was it? This is literally what she's talking like here. But that was just last night. Have you checked his chamber? I imagine he's just sick from the wine. It was quite strong. Even I felt a bit fuddled. I opted to turn in early, in fact.
Help. Police. Murder.
I don't know how he's fooled, but maybe he's not. Maybe he knows. Because he's just like, whatever, we're here to reassign this guy's job. Like, maybe he knows that his daughter is killing his people and he just doesn't care. And I know Jenna will swear up and down that Layla cannot just go and kill her father because, people would be suspicious, she has too many enemies here, but she is the god queen of the fucking realm, okay? She's the only one, she has all these powers, she's murdering people left, right, and center. Anybody comes to get her, she just teleports away. It just doesn't make sense. I hope I'm not expected to remember who all these senators are, because I cannot express to you how much I don't care. Oh good, I was wondering how they figured out how much they were going to pay Tobias's family for him being in the tournament.
Sarcasm? You think?
Jenna wants to make sure that you read certain things in a certain way, which does fit because she also tends to want you to like or dislike characters in a certain way. She doesn't trust you to read anything correctly without help from all these italics. Layla's refusing to go and be seen at some ceremony, presentation ceremony, whatever, because it doesn't fit with her scheme. And her dad's pissed about it, and he's started to put off a red aura. But didn't she say in the earlier chapter that he only ever puts off, like, dull colors? And now her dad's just beating the shit out of her, because why not have physical abuse? Just having someone who is mentally abusive is not enough. So Bronte finishes up verbally and physically abusing her, and then she runs away. The craft in some of this book is not the worst, especially after reading The Ables. This looks like fucking Shakespeare compared to The Ables. And sometimes Jenna can flex a little bit, and she can write something that's very descriptive and very real feeling, like Layla running away, being sad. It's only a paragraph, so it's not too long, and it's just like physically what her body is doing as she's crying, what it feels like. And like, that's good. It was a good paragraph. A lot of the craft is here. It's just being used very pointlessly in a story that doesn't need to exist. And that's too bad. Not that her craft is perfect, but whose is? I mean, really, whose is? You can read my book and see lots of problems with it too, I'm sure. I see problems with it, but as an author, you cannot, it's impossible to fix every problem with your book. It is impossible. You can fight me, but until you write a book and try it, you can't argue with me about how impossible it is. But, that said, did she need to use that craft, that skill, whatever skill she has, writing this? Probably not. Hi, hello, welcome back to the madness. Welcome to the commencement, which is chapter 4. So I know that she told her dad that she wasn't going to show up to this, and then he abused her for a while, but then he went along with her not showing up. So I'm a little bit confused. He wouldn't drag her for some reason, I guess to save face. Ooh, maybe now we find out what the crowd is supposed to do after all of the men have gone down into the labyrinth and can't be seen. In case we're not sure how Layla is feeling about any of this, just in case we are not 100% positive of her feelings, the crowd roared in approval, but she didn't share their joy. Really? Wow, I thought that Layla was all about this tournament. So Layla's like, I want all of their records. I want all the information on all of these men, probably so she can figure out which ones are the assassins. So they go on this like search, apparently. It's only like a paragraph, we're just told that they go on this search, but apparently for some reason, these scrolls are hard to find. Is Jenna throwing shade at herself? The girls are looking through the scrolls, which are all very nondescript, like the brave, age 26, hair red, eyes blue. Like no other descriptors, not gonna say where he's from or anything like that. But then they're also noticing they all have names like the prince, the jester, the dog. And then Delphi says, makes them sound more like characters than men. Is Jenna shading herself? Because all of her characters do just feel like characters instead of real people. I don't know how to feel right now. Oh, this could have been a chance to be more interesting. Layla figures, because the men are all put into categories, they're given titles and they're put into categories, and one of the categories is the beasts. And Layla figures that her assassin is going to come from that category. And I think it would have been really interesting if Tobias had been in that category. And so she had been suspicious of him as a possible assassin. But I think that would have been an interesting twist. Obviously, we can't have it now because in the first book he wasn't, and I don't know how much of this book Jenna actually thought out while she was writing the first one. Oh no. Well, first of all, the girls come in. All those servants, 1, 2, 3, and 4, come in. And they're, of course, like, oh my gosh, Layla is into it after all. She's looking at all the boys. Eee, girly things. And Layla's like, ugh, I hate them. She's still looking at the scrolls, and then she comes across Tobias, the artist, age 21, hair brown, eyes black. She faltered. Black? Ah, yes. That's a thing that would definitely make you stop and be like, ooh, who's this? So we have Layla thinking, oh, for God's sake. Which brings up a point that I often bring up about how the religion in this world is not developed at all. And that's a problem when one of your characters is essentially like a demigod. I have figured out through mostly things that are not in the books that these people do worship a god, not the Christian god, but there is a god. They are monotheistic. And then the savior is supposed to be like a present from this god or an offshoot of this god or something like that. And that's why all the characters can say things like, oh, for God's sake, because they just happen to have this other god that was not talked about in the first book at all. And so it created a lot of problems for me because if you're going to have characters speak the way that we speak in the modern world, you have to think about why we speak that way. This religion is not fleshed out in the slightest. It's just people worship the savior, kind of. Except for when they do whatever the sovereign says, I guess. And who is this other god that they worship? Completely unclear. We don't see any shrines, we don't see any temples, we don't see any rituals. So apparently this god is just ritual free, but he has sent them a savior, so thank goodness. Developing religion can be a really fun thing to do in your stories. I love to think about the various gods that my characters might worship or not worship. I often in my stories have multiple sort of belief systems in the same story. It's interesting to explore. The predisposition of all of these people with dicks concerns me. Or cocks. They're all called cocks here, and cock is the only thing they are called. So more women keep coming into this room, and they're all doing very womany things, where they're all squealing over guys and fighting over the scrolls and everything, and only Layla is able to like focus on the mission at hand. Layla soon discovers that 2 scrolls are missing, and she is certain that the missing ones are going to be the assassins. Because of course, the assassins never entered the pool, like properly. If I was the evil king, I would have them enter the pool and just rig it so they were in for sure, just in case anybody was investigating this. None of these women ever walk anywhere. So far they've waltzed, they've drifted, let's see, what's another one? They've flitted. Women, we don't walk. We don't just walk. We gotta sashay. Okay, Layla is doing some real shady shit. Oh dear. So she talks about her friend, her little friend.
Say hello to my little friend!
I feel like, am I supposed to know what this is, or is this another mystery? And then she goes into the Senate chamber, and she just pretends to be just hanging out in there reading a scroll, but really she pushes a secret, like, stone in the floor with her foot, which opens up a hole, and she drops a peach in for her friend. So is Layla, who is already, as we established, kidnapped a child, at least one. Is she holding someone prisoner underneath the Senate room? Like, what is the level of this girl's evil? So apparently there is no way to see what the men are up to in the labyrinth. Layla's just getting a report. It is just as boring as we suspected. The crowds all gather to watch these brave men go into the tournament, and then the men disappear into a hole in the ground. 3 men died on the first day. Men that I don't remember anything about because they are so unimportant they died on the first day. But Layla is like, how did they die? Tell me how they died, Wimbledon. Because she is pretty sure that she can figure out who the assassins are by figuring out who did the murdering first, I think. Which is an interesting strategy. I mean, all these men are here to kill or die for her, so it wouldn't necessarily be the assassins that would be doing the killing. And if they were good assassins, which we know they are not, to be fair, but if they were good assassins, they wouldn't make themselves stand out like that. She's like, who killed them? And of course Wimbledon's like, I don't know, I didn't see it, because no one can see what the fuck they're doing. They're underground. Cool. Also, wasn't handsome blonde guard man like supposed to be dogging her everywhere? But she was just teleporting around like nobody's business, and I don't know how he would ever possibly keep track of her or not realize that she had teleportation powers. But we seem to have completely abandoned that thread for the moment. I'm sure that thread will continue whenever we just happen to need Guard Boy to be back. So Layla, she goes back to her chambers. She's getting a cloak from the wardrobe or whatever, and she's like, I'm going into the labyrinth. Men were killed, and I need to fucking figure out why, because I'm sure the assassins did it. We are close to her very first sighting of Toby, probably the main reason that people are even reading this, because it's interesting to read. I mean, I think so. The first meeting, the first impression of a romantic interest. I wouldn't write a whole book about it. Layla's like, how do common folk even dress? Have you not seen any of the servants in your own palace? Presumably they don't dress up as nice as you. Pippa, the sister who Layla stole, who also has some form of cognitive disability, we're not sure what, really wants to come along, and Layla finally just like can't say no because Pippa's a precious bean. Wait, she can teleport out of the palace? But I thought the whole thing was that she couldn't teleport out of the palace, and she just did. I guess she's still inside the wall. So the palace is back here, wall over here, her in between. But if she can get this far, I really think that she would be able to escape if she wanted to. Very dubious about her inability to escape. Layla's like, men are dead and people are cheering. Layla, pick a lane. You kill people all the time. Maybe she's just mad that nobody cheers for her when she does it. I feel like maybe bringing Pippa along was actually a terrible idea. I mean, we know it's going to be fine because we've read the first book, but Pippa, can she really understand the situation? Can she keep from revealing who Layla really is if somebody questions her the right way? She did confer her teleportation powers onto Pippa, so she's like, Pippa, if you get in trouble, just picture my chambers and you'll teleport there. And of course, the minute that Layla and Pippa come into the room full of the men immediately begin being slathering misogynist. Just like right out the gate. They're like, her, suck my dick. So Layla has basically realized that she's essentially walked into Magic Mike, and now she's just ogling all the men. Oh my goodness, I've never seen this many hotties in one place before. They're all shirtless. Layla touched a nipple. Very exciting. Because remember, she is like hyper innocent. While everyone else in this kingdom is horny as fuck, Layla, super innocent. Virgin queen. Oh, guys, we have another mystery solved that we didn't care about. Now we know where the guys in the book got their deck of cards that they were playing that stupid children's card game with. Layla gave it to them. Oh my gosh. Oh, you know what? Thank goodness we found that out. Only in a fanfic do we need to stop and answer, who gave the men their deck of playing cards? We have mention of the shepherd, Kaleo, the most disappointing assassin and shepherd that ever was. I still want a version of this world where Kaleo is actually also a shepherd assassin. Even though they often use modern words and slang in this book, nobody ever says sorry. They just say apologies, apologies, apologies. Well, apparently they also have witchcraft in their world, which would be interesting to hear about if any of their religion or belief was explored, but it's just a lazy cop-out to make it seem like the world is bigger than it is. Because all the men here have the exact same body type, it also is a bit of a letdown. Like, couldn't they try to have some guys? I mean, they range from smallish and muscular to huge and muscular, but there's nobody with like an ounce of anything but muscle on their bodies. It's fine to be into the super muscular body type, but the fact that all of them are the same is really boring.
Not to mention that guys don't just automatically get the bodybuilder body type if they do any kind of work. The type of body that we associate with like super masculine, with all the hard muscle and the defined abs and all of that, you have to work out specifically to get that kind of muscle. But Tobias doesn't do that. We know that. Yes, he has a menial labor job, which would give him some muscle tone, but it would only give him muscle tone in the places where he would need it. So he probably has okay abs. His legs are probably cool. His arms and shoulders are probably pretty nice looking because he does a lot of like physical work with those. But he would not look like a sculpted god as he's described because he just doesn't work out the way you have to actually get that type of movie star body that we're seeing here.
So I think we finally met Tobias. We don't get a moment where she's like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. I'm sure that'll come later. But she thinks that he is the shepherd at first. I don't even still have the first book. I gave it to my sister, so I can't even really check. But I'm pretty sure that this conversation did not happen when she first met Tobias. If the meeting went this exact same way in the original book, let me know, because I don't remember. But it would have been weird if it did. I think I would have been like, what's going on? If she approached him and accused him of being the shepherd. Tobias is legitimately more upset in this book over Milo's death than I remember him ever being in the first book. Tobias's aura is very black and moody because he is an emo boy and he just has so much soul pain to go with his black eyes. So Layla's pretty sure now she knows what the assassins look like, but she's gonna keep coming into the labyrinth, we know that. And she hasn't properly like crushed on Toby yet, I don't think, so I'll be interested to see what reason she gives to go back into the labyrinth another time. Maybe she just wants to try to kill them, I don't know. And I'm gonna now do anything else with my night, then read more of that.
Well, hey, did you come here looking for patrons? Well, you're in luck, because I have a list of the best patrons in the world right here in my hand. They are Patrick and Sophie, Callison, Ray, Artemis, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Ryakio, Irene, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Lennox. That's right, you don't need to look any further. These are the best patrons. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
You want to play games? Okay. I'll play with you. Come on. Okay. You want to play rough? Okay. Uno. Say hello to my little friend!